I'm here with Neal David Sutz, the primary subject and publisher of the recently released book SOS Scream of Silence. First, what is this picture behind you?
The picture behind me is an original cutout of a full page which I bought in the Washington Times. Obviously, everybody knows the Washington Times. The picture here is the cover of the book. Obviously, it's addressed, Dear Mr. President. On the website, there's an actual letter to President Trump respectfully imploring him for his international political intervention. And the link for the website, sosbook.is, indicating to people the story is out there, the story is true, and the story is still happening right now. And I thought that was the best way to kick off, if you will, not just the book, but letting people in the United States know what's happening here in Geneva, Switzerland.
A full page in the Washington Times. I imagine that you have received some responses.
The response has been quite extraordinary. I can't go into the details of every response that I've received for simple matters of confidentiality. Suffice it to say, things are starting to move in the United States.
So my first question is, who wrote this book and what has been your role in bringing it to publication and publicity?
A writer here in Geneva, whom I'd known at that time a little bit, came to me one day. He was a little familiar with the story, and he handed me a stack of papers, about 20 papers typed, and I said, what is that? And he said, well, I started to write a book about what's going on with you and your sons and your family. Maybe this will help, because I had tried so many things to this point in following the law to the letter. Having been a writer, although the writer of the book, his maternal language, his native language is French, not English, I worked with him. He did some interviews with me, a lot of interviews. He read the court file, every file involved with the situation, almost 5,000 pages, predominantly in French, and wrote a version of the book in French, completed the book, and I took the book, I translated it from French to English, and added on the appropriate documentation, highly redacted, more than anything to protect myself, for the simple fact, for example, that I redacted all the names of the people that are Swiss that are involved in the situation, because I have quite enough pressure on me as it is. Made sure there was no defamation in the book, and added onto the book and edited for factual accuracy. So everything is 100% perfect, factual, and true.
On the cover of the book, there is an image of the Mormon temple just outside of Washington, D.C. What exactly, as written in the book and the story at the base of the book, the Mormon connection to your case?
You have to really read the whole book to get it, and probably ask me about 1,000 questions. Suffice it to say, my ex-wife's family is tied directly to the top of the Mormon Church, both in the religious leadership part and the legal general counsel part of the Mormon Church in Salt Lake City, Utah, United States of America. There are over 20 individuals who are very influential Mormons in Geneva here, in Arizona, and in Salt Lake City, who are deeply involved in this case. And these people, although only a couple of them have ever even met myself and my two sons, are rather insatiable in their desire to continue to try to, I can say metaphorically, cut my head off, but I've already received 2 death threats, one from one of the leaders here in Geneva, one of the leaders of the Mormon Church in Geneva, and one from my ex-wife and her group of people, family. So the Mormon connection is very, very, very complex and deep in this situation, although when you say the word Mormon here in Geneva, 9 people out of 10 don't even know what the word Mormon means. You go to America, especially West Coast America, we're all pretty aware of what the Mormon influence and power is, especially if you marry into a family that's tied all the way to the top by blood.
I understand that you are a Swiss American dual citizen. The book is very clear that you and your ex-wife came to Geneva from Arizona when you lived and raised your sons in a mutual agreement to start a new life. So it's clear in the book the reasoning behind you coming here to Geneva. Can you please give us a summary of the events before you came here and how things snowballed upon your arrival?
Okay. In brief summary, to hit the more poignant events, February 20th, 2017, just over 2 years ago, we're living in Arizona, me, my ex-wife, our 2 sons. My ex-wife comes home one night, falls to the ground, hands me her phone without saying anything and says, look, look, look. There was a video that she had found on her mother's cell phone of her mother making a child pornography video of my ex-wife's father-in-law, or no, stepfather, he would be my ex-father-in-law, molesting my former nephew through marriage, her nephew by blood. That didn't bode well for her emotional and psychiatric well-being to see her parents involved in something like that, despite the abuse she'd grown up with. I don't understand the complexities, and I'm not going to claim to. I just know what I experienced being married to her and being married into that family and the kind of dysfunction and abuse that went on. So we came here because as you said, I'm half Swiss, half American. We wanted to start a new life. We wanted to protect our sons. We didn't want them growing up with these people. As it turns out, my ex-wife doesn't feel this way, and she's back. Well, we'll get into that later. But so we came here 2.5 weeks after we got here, going into July of 2017. My ex-wife attempted a double suicide out of the 8th-story window of our apartment in the center of Geneva with our youngest son, who was then 3 years old. Fortunately, I was able to get him free from her hands. She was hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital.
But how on earth did you end up marrying into a family like that of your ex-wife?
Again, short question. I'll try to give you a short answer. The book goes into a lot more. For a lot of years in America, almost 10 at that point when I met her in 2010, I was an author and a filmmaker and an activist in the mental health industry. And I had met my ex-wife and her mother. On the first time I met my ex-wife, I actually met her mother at the same time, and her 5-week-old baby, my ex-wife's 5-week-old baby, who is my son, my legal stepson, but my son, I've raised since that day. Her mother was a teacher for a thing called Family to Family. It's a teaching group for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness in America, which is an enormous mental health group. I met her mother, I met her. I started to meet her family members. It's not foreign, if you will, the idea of meeting Mormon people. And there are a lot of good Mormon people in the church. But when I started learning, as I met member after member after member of her family and then extended family, the kind of abuse and corruption that was going on in this family, that happened in a matter of 3 months after I met her, and it was too late. Because I wasn't just going to divorce her and leave my stepson, who was getting into 3 months, 4 months, 5 months old, knowing this is what he was going to grow up in. So I stayed because I love my son, and I loved him when it was just him, and now both of my sons because we had a son together, a biological son, and I stayed for them.
Okay. And where is your ex-wife now? When was the last time you saw her?
She left Geneva at the end of April last year, 2018. Mm-hmm. From what was given to me as far as the court documents here in Geneva go, she left Geneva to go back to America to get treatment for her issues that she has. And I didn't know she went back to her family until a long time afterwards. But last I heard through the court documents, she was with her family doing well, everything's great, she's stable, she's sober, everything's good. Because different parties here in Geneva to the case have not seen her on video WhatsApp or heard her audibly on a phone in months, I decided to call Arizona to talk to the police in Gilbert, Arizona, where her parents live, where we used to live in the same city. And public police records, not a private investigator and not breaking any laws, indicated that there were numerous police interventions since October of last year up until the first week in February of this year. And the last document showed is that her own mother went to the mental health court in Maricopa County, where Gilbert and Phoenix is, and had her petitioned into psychiatric treatment. So I'd rather go on fact than rumor. I'd rather know the police records are true rather than think what I might hear through a third party here in Geneva is true. And the unfortunate thing about it, and I won't get into all the details, is that my boys, who have been placed, as they call it, a placement, here in Geneva for almost 2 years now, and have not been living with me, and are falling apart, as everybody that knows them knows that, are continuing to receive text messages supposedly from my ex-wife, and a couple of boxes of toys that have come supposedly from my ex-wife. And it's not that, I'm playing psychiatrist, or I'm playing lawyer, I'm playing police officer who knows these things, but the law is very clear in Arizona that level 1 psychiatric hospitals do not allow the use of mobile phones, computers, post offices, things like that. So to answer your question, last I heard she was, from the police, that she was hospitalized for an indefinite period of time.
Okay. And where are your two sons presently? Could you tell me a little bit about them?
They are living in a thing called a foyer, a group home for children. It's the second one they've lived in. They first were, when they were ripped out of my arms physically and I was thrown out of a building on July 25th of 2017, they were kept in a room in the Children's Hospital here in Geneva for 3.5 months. They were then transferred to a foyer for younger kids. My oldest son, my stepson legally, he aged out. So they transferred them to another foyer. They've been there for approximately 14 months now. I see them only in the foyer for a maximum of 8 hours a week, having tried 1,000 different ways to get more time with them. When we're together, it's great for them. The reports from the foyer show very clearly that they're falling apart, and everybody knows it, and nobody's doing anything to help them. I have no decision making in my stepson's life, even though in Arizona I did everything for him. I have very limited decision making on my biological son. They're 9 and 5 now. Remember, they were taken when they were 7 and 3. My oldest son has been beat up numerous times in the foyer. There was a situation of him being inappropriately touched by a big kid at the emergency foyer, which is across the walkway from the building that they're in. And, I put a smile on when I go see them, and I fake it, because I don't want them to see me sad, because they're sad enough. And all they do is talk about wanting to come home, and not just to me, they talk with everybody. But things here in Geneva, as they say, are long, and it's real long now, and it's just about long enough.
Why did you decide, now nearly 2 years since your sons were taken from you, after having tried so many other measures to get them home, to publish this book, ran a full-page ad in the Washington Times, exposed this story in full to the general public, and in short, potentially cause yourself to have even more stress, pressure, and false accusations made against you?
The whole story started out with false accusations, and that's what the problem is. Within 24 hours of my ex-wife being hospitalized in Belly Day, the psychiatric hospital here in Geneva, she turned around and pointed the finger at me and said, my ex-husband's a pedophile. He raped me for years. He's molested the kids, beaten me, beaten the kids, and she went on and on and on. Apparently, as it turns out, she thought that I committed her to the hospital, and that's what the whole thing was. It was some sort of, what I've been told from multiple psychiatrists, including one of the directors of the Belly Day Hospital, whom I met numerous times, who knew my ex-wife when she was here, is that it was a snap revenge thing at me. and without any consideration for what was going to happen to the kids. And 9 days after she was hospitalized on July 15th, the kids were placed immediately. And why have I decided to do this now? I've decided to do it now because the psychiatric family expertise, which is, we don't have those in America, it doesn't exist. They're highly questionable, and everybody in Geneva knows it. And let's just say everybody knows it here, including the media and the hospital and the lawyers and the judges. But there's a lot of people that listen very closely to that. Basically what it means is there's a psychiatrist or two psychiatrists who do this multi-month study on a family, and they write this thing called an expertise, and these people are called experts. They even said in that, despite all the false accusations against me, despite the fact that everything that's in the book, and they haven't seen the book yet because it's very recent, unless of course they've gotten a copy of the book somehow, they said that everything that happened in the book, because there was, my youngest son's name got changed, collusion with the U.S. consul and his assistant at the American Embassy in Bern, multiple members of the Mormon Church, world-renowned child psychiatrist, all on paper proven to be true. In this expertise, they said, well, Mr. Sutz has followed the law to the letter, but he's paranoid, psychotic, and in a state of delirium, having imagined all of this. None of this exists. And the kids need to stay in the foyer because they're doing great, and they use the word in French, it's evolving. They're evolving. So basically my kids are evolving into decompensated, broken little boys and essentially little animals, but they think that's great. And if you hear a tone of sarcasm, clearly at this point after 2 years, I'm a little bit sarcastic because I've gotten all the false accusations from the beginning from my ex-wife, and then it just snowballed. And the power of the American media, the world media, to say something and to get this moving in the right direction, meaning to help me save my sons and get them home, is going to be probably the only thing that works in terms of pushing political intervention, because nothing has worked here that I've done. Even though they tell me I've done everything right, they also say that I've made it up. So I published the book to show that it's clearly not made up. It's government and court certified documents with the stamps, with the signatures, with everything. Redacting the names of the Swiss people, of course, because I got enough problems with the people here. And to let people in the world know what's going on, because my mentality is Americans in general are having a big problem right now with getting censored, not having the right to speak, even though it's in the Constitution, the freedom of speech. We have the same problem in Switzerland. And my strong feeling and belief, and more than hope, my faith, is in the fact that the right journalist or journalists will get a hold of this to inform the right politicians to get the situation taken care of and to stop the destruction of my sons and our family.
Why do you think, despite of the proof of this case being extremely corrupt and dragging on indefinitely, that the canton of Geneva is still keeping your sons and not even thinking about letting them come home to you for at least another 3-5 years? This is really unbelievable to imagine.
In America, we say buddy buddy. Okay? In Geneva, in French, we say ami ami, friend friend. I've been told by numerous people that the system here, the child protective system called the SPMI, some people in the court, I'm not saying the judge now or the judge before, but a lot of people, they figured after 2 years I'd probably break. I'd probably end up maybe like my ex-wife in some psych hospital, or being a coke addict or an alcoholic. And why has it gone on? I have my theories, and the book goes into that quite a bit. But the final answer, I couldn't tell you why it's gone on this long, because there's no reason for it to have gone on this long, even though Geneva and this particular court is long, as they say. Now we're going backwards after 2 years. We had a court hearing a month or so ago, and we're going completely backwards. So why? I have my own ideas. The book goes into a lot of it and who's behind this and why they're doing it. And it's very well documented. It's not just theoretical. It's very well documented.
Okay, thanks. The claims written in the book are, well, rather extreme. Admitting, of course, since there are code-certified government photographic and other written proofs in the book, do you feel that you and your sons were singled out to be the targets of what appeared to be a conspiracy between certain Swiss and American institutions?
Well,
If so, why do you feel this way?
all right, well, let me say first of all, just to be real clear, and I've made it clear in on the website in the letter that I wrote to President Trump, which is extremely long and in massive detail. I am not against the Swiss government, the Geneva government. I am not against any of them. I am not against the American government on a federal or state level with Arizona and Salt Lake City. That being said, in every system, whatever you want to call it, every sector of government, justice, Switzerland, America, there are always bound to be some people that break the law or numerous laws. I mean, the thing is, and I don't know how to put it other than this, do I think we were singled out? Repeating again that I met some nice Mormons when I was living in Arizona. I met some nice women, some nice men, kids, whatever. If you go all the way to the top, and it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. And everybody knows it in America, and it's proven time and time again. Kids are to be told what to do and to be possessed. And I don't mean possessed like by a spirit of the devil. I mean possessed like possessions. Not in every family. But where this comes into where we targeted, considering the beginning of this in the first 3.5 to 4 weeks of this situation, I was unaware that there was an attempt, an organization of international child kidnapping going on, that my youngest son's last name had been changed, with Mormon people, people from the hospital here, people in America, people at the embassy. Why did they do it? And do I feel we were singled out? Absolutely. Do I know why? I have my theories, but I couldn't put a finger on it specifically. The book lets people make their own determinations after they see the documents, not just read the story.
Mm-hmm. Have you come to the Swiss governmental authorities to ask for help in getting your sons back? If so, what was their response?
Last year, 2018, summer, I went to the essentially the governing board for the canton of Geneva called the Conseil d'État. It's a multi-member group of people, presented what we would call in America a binder, like an old school book binder, highly well organized, done in conjunction with a colleague of mine, a dear friend who obviously is Genevois and could read every document. I asked for their help, and months and months and months went by. The proof was all there, and now the story's even more out of hand a year later. And the response was, why don't we do a family expertise? No comment whatsoever on all the proof that was in there, all the documents of the attempt and the organization of international child kidnapping, all the falsified, everything that was in there, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people I've consulted, many of whom are also lawyers who aren't even my lawyers, but my lawyer as well, this should have never happened. My children should have never been taken from me. And if they were taken, they should have been given right back. And in fact, just one brief thing, 3 days after my children were ripped out of my arms and placed in the hospital, and going into August then of 2017, the child protective people here in Geneva, called the SPMI, the Service for the Protection of Minors and Infants, called me to their office and said, you can go to the psych hospital right now where your ex-wife is, and if she says it's okay for your kids to come home, your boys, they can come home, and we'll help you in any way that we can. Well, I went there, and it's very in detail in the book, but I went there. Thank you. I ran to the hospital, I took the bus, and her response was, F you, the kids will get out of the children's hospital when I get out of this hospital. because she was initially hospitalized under a court order for 60 days. Well, things didn't quite turn out like that, because now we're 2 years later. She's apparently in some psych hospital in Arizona, and the kids are destroyed, and our family's completely annihilated. But she had the power to actually get them back home and give them a good, happy, safe life, which is what we both agreed we wanted to give them. But apparently there was some sort of power play. And there hasn't been, I haven't gone to the Swiss federal government yet, but I'm sure that's in play right now.
And why do you think all these people have gotten away with what they have done?
Why do I think? I mean, in short, look, you really, the readers, they have to read the book to really get it. Why have they gotten away with it? And because anywhere you go in the world, it doesn't matter if it's Switzerland or America or, well, not anywhere, in most Western countries, if you will, people break crimes, do unethical things, do immoral things, and they skate. Why have some people gotten away with it? I think some people have gotten away with it because they have more power than others. And I think other people have gotten away with it because they're associated with people who have power. And it's proven in the book with the documentation. All these people are connected to each other. So why did they get away with it? I don't know. The question that I have is, why have they done this and let it go on for so long?
Mr. Sutz, having read this book and having viewed all the certified documents in it, the question that comes to mind is, how do you think that this custody case became so controversial?
Too many people got involved. Too many people, quite frankly, as proven by the documentation, too many members of my ex-wife's family and the Mormon Church got involved. And that's where they say here in Geneva, they say, Monsieur Sutz, il est cinglé, which means Mr. Sutz, he's out of his mind, talking about all this Mormon nonsense. If you look at the court file, it's member of the Mormon Church, 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 all who have nothing to do with this case, that have just stuck their fingers and noses into it. And people, I don't blame them in the court system here, in this court, in the TPA. I'd be probably a little bit confused too. If a simple custody case and placement of children got so complex, where there's dozens of people involved that have nothing to do, that aren't parties to the case, I've kept it simple on my side. I could have gotten 50 witnesses from America to write testimonials about whatever, about my ex-wife's family, who they are in the church, her instability, the psychiatric this, the drugs that. I wanted to keep it simple. And the one word that everybody keeps saying is, your case is so complex. And I said, I know. I said in the beginning it wasn't complex. But my kids, my boys, are being looked at as possessions to be won. It's always, oh yeah, your ex-wife's going to win. Or her saying when she was here, I'm going to win. The boys aren't possessions. Little kids, my kids, your kids, anybody's kids, they're not possessions to be bought or sold, won or lost. My boys are to be saved, and this is why this is happening. This is why the book is out. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And yeah, the repercussions, I've had some pretty intense repercussions already. But I'm not defaming anybody. I'm not disclosing any documents that are private, Swiss or American. There's nothing. It's just the truth, period.
Now, Mr. Sutz, the last question may be the more difficult. What are you going to do when you will get your sons back?
We're going to take a vacation for a couple weeks. Because they haven't had a vacation. Their life sucks. Pardon my being so blunt. They're prisoners in a hospital for 3.5 months. They get sent to one foyer. They get thrown to another foyer. They get to spend 0 time with me outside of the foyer, even though everything that I've been accused of, in fact, has been proven to be false, me being dangerous and all that nonsense. Proven to be false, literally. And even by my ex-wife in a court document, she retracted everything and said I lied about everything in the beginning of this. And then it kept getting more and more confusing. So what are we going to do? I'm going to make sure my kids have a happy, stable life. a peaceful life. And the life that they deserve. I'm not going to break any laws. I haven't broken any laws, even though I keep getting tempted to, somebody's doing something to me and they say, well, he's gonna react, he's gonna this. I'm not going to break any laws. I'm not going to do what the leaders of the Mormon Church in Geneva did on Christmas of 2017 with half a dozen people involved and set up an international child kidnapping with a plane at the airport in Geneva. And now the whole Swiss border is sealed on what's called a repole, which is, I can't even cross the border. Half the time I cross the border to come into France to see friends, I get stopped by the border guards looking in my car to see if my kid's in there. And I have this whole basic speech set all the time. My kids are in this foyer and this is the situation. And they're all really nice because they get that I'm not hiding anything, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm going to get my kids back because they need to be home with me. And they deserve to have a good, stable, happy life, a safe life, and not the garbage life that they have right now that's been given to them. The only thing that they have good in their lives right now, other than the little 8 hours a week we get to spend together, the three of us, is each of them have good schools for special needs kids, because they're both special needs, with nice people that work there that care about them. And the people that work at the foyer where they are now, as well as the other foyer where they were at before, are really nice. But they have no power and no influence whatsoever. They write report after report after report saying how great the relationship is between me and my kids and how we should be able to expand it and the kids should be able to see. My boys don't even know where I live. I created a home for them a year and a half ago. They don't even know where it is. And they don't have the right to, apparently, as per the court here in Geneva. I'm just going to make sure my kids are happy, because that's all I care about. It's the most important thing in the world to me, and it's cliche and whatever people want to say, and well, he's a man, he's a father, he can't be all sappy like that. My kids have had their entire lives destroyed and stolen from them, and their youth. My little guy, Skylar, he was 3 years old when I was in the hospital with him, where we were there for a physical exam. I had him in one arm. I had my 7-year-old, Corey, by my hand, and Skylar was ripped out of my arms. Corey was ripped away from me. They were dragged down a hallway. And the next thing I knew, after some little brief meeting, I was told, your kids are staying here. I wasn't shown any documentation whatsoever, nothing. A piece of paper was held up across the room. We have a document saying your kids are going to stay here. Get a lawyer. And then we opened the door and there were 2 huge security guards at the door, and they threw me out of the hospital, 1 on each side. I said, don't come back until you hear something else. Get a lawyer. It's a crime against humanity, and I don't care what anybody says. I don't care who says I'm crazy, psychotic, paranoid, anything. The facts are the facts, and everybody knows what the facts are, even the people that are working against me getting my kids back. They know it's a lie, they know it's corruption, they know it's a conspiracy, and their easiest solution for it is to call me crazy. Although, again, that's why I published the book, because the book proves the truth to the contrary.
Thank you, Mr. Sutz, for taking the time to speak with me and answer my questions. We wish you all the best in getting your sons home as quickly as possible.
Thank you for speaking.